Well, ladies and gentlemen, what an exciting day in terms of the news. And before we get on to the main news stories, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to support the work I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below. As per usual, I say this every day, so I assume you all know it anyway. So first news article of today, and actually this is something that happened yesterday during Mbalula's press conference. During the press conference, he drew reference to Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu, and specifically their relationship. And he did say a lot of people have speculated on the fallout of Julius Malema with Floyd Shivambu, and he says there's no fallout. He says these two are like close as you can get. They're best buds. And that the whole move from Floyd Shivambu moving to the MK party is actually to manage ZUMA. Apparently he's there to be controlled opposition, if you will. So apparently he's undermining the MK party, but from within. And at some point in time, they'll reunite and Floyd Shivambu will go home. I must say that I've spoken to numerous individuals within the EFF, and I've not actually heard that comment before. In fact, I've heard other allegations that potentially they fell out due to a personal matter involving one of Julius Malema's family members. I'm not going to say more because it's all allegation and speculation. But anyway, this is an interesting new take on it. In fact, many individuals have speculated that maybe Malema is just a plant. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Right. Let's move then on to a more pressing issue, and that obviously is around the proposed gun security rules that will affect PSIRA. So this is effectively all the rules that have been going around specifically in relation to the amendments on security officers' firearms. Now, I did a video on this, and I actually had to do 2 videos on it because, as per usual, everybody moans. But it's very interesting to see what PSIRA has now come out and said. And interestingly enough, my initial video that everybody moaned at, this is 100% accurate. So according to PSIRA, this is exactly what I thought would be the case. PSIRA says that the reason for these rule changes is that they're not actually banning the private security industry from using firearms. Instead, they're trying to regulate the use of firearms, when it can be used and what firearms they can use, which is exactly what I said in the video. Now, the reason for this is apparently there are numerous instances where individuals have private security, they're going into shopping malls, 16 security officers, and they're all like carrying AR-15s. And apparently this isn't good because it's like, how do you assume that this is a good use of private security to act as a bodyguard? I mean, interestingly enough, the only individuals I know that are doing that are probably ANC cadres. So interestingly enough, this will actually impact ANC cadres more than anybody else. And according to them, they said in those instances, they'd want you to do, a form of a security risk assessment so that you can say that this was all valid and reasonable. And that the idea is that this will stop individuals from using firearms in a private security manner, but in a way that affects the public, like unreasonably affects the public. And so PSIRA highlights that there are instances where whole shopping centers are shut down by effectively private security individuals with AR-15s. Now, you see, a big criticism that has been levied against the PSIRA and the private security bill is that effectively it was legislation by stealth and not legislation in a good cooperative manner. But PSIRA says that that's not actually what happened. They said that these were regulations that have been put forward for public comment. Once they've gone through public comment, they'll go through public engagement. They'll engage with people like PSIRA and other security individuals. They'll then go before the police portfolio. And then once the police portfolio has considered it, it may go before Parliament for approval. So we're very far away from that happening. And so according to them, these draft rules are like nowhere near getting anywhere the light of day. Which I suppose actually is why you, ladies and gentlemen, should probably comment on them, the usual way. Now, it's very interesting to see the Guy Lamb. It's always Guy Lamb. News 24 loved the bloody guy, and he's a freaking idiot. Anyway, Guy Lamb commented on these and said, well, they seem perfectly reasonable. And that the process still needed to be explained. In other words, the Minister of Police needed to explain what the rationality for these were and what exactly it is that he's trying to address so that public engagement and comment can commence. Well, we've just heard from PSIRA what they're trying to address, and to me, it seems like almost ANC cadre abuse of the private security regulations. That's just my opinion. And in any case, apparently, according to Malema, it's a good thing when we regulate firearms because it means that, they can't go missing from these security companies. Because that's where criminals get all of their guns from, private security. It's a bit of a leap, isn't it, guy? In any case, the DA says that it is one of the individuals that will actually lobby against these draft regulations. They say that the proposals are, overly strict. They're a bit beyond what they should be, and no doubt they will probably get them either shelved or amended. But the DA, like everybody, says the same thing to you, ladies and gentlemen. That is, if you don't like the rules, comment on them, say you don't like them, in the usual manner that you would engage in your public engagement, whether that be through DRSA or whoever else. In any case, I, for one, would say that these are rules that do need to be withdrawn because, as you can see from this news today, a businessman in Kabaha, where I live, basically, Port Elizabeth, got kidnapped. Now, it was a Chinese individual, and apparently the actual kidnapping itself occurred through what they described as military-type precision. And you see, that becomes interesting because, no doubt, this is where private security is important. And by stripping private security of their firearms, it makes it more difficult for businessmen like this individual to, protect themselves from what is being described as almost a military-type engagement. On to other news, the Rand is pretty much screwed. Not really a lot to say there. And Zimbabwe has now had to actually pay dollar bonds to all the individuals where they stole their land. Because, give us back the land, but actually we'll have to pay you for it because we did things we shouldn't have. In any case, Zimbabwe can't actually afford to pay the compensation that they agreed to pay in 2020. And so they are now issuing treasury bonds for the value to these white farmers who basically lost their properties 25 years ago. And this should actually be a case study for South Africa, specifically aligned with the Expropriation Act. Talking of the reason that Zimbabwe is a failed state, and that would obviously be US sanctions and the pressure that the US has placed on it since the whole land grabs occurred. Well, as you all know, if you watch this channel, the US says they're going to sanction the bejeebers out of the ANC, and Mbalula has now responded to that and said there's no basis for the US to sanction ANC leaders because they've not done anything. Apparently everything that they hear is, the usual false narrative, and ANC individuals are now doubling down on that, saying that all of these things that are occurring, these news stories are being pushed by far-right propagandists, which I suppose includes me. So yay, I must be a far-right propagandist now. But we all know it for exactly what it is. It's an opportunity for them to basically say, we did nothing wrong, it's everybody else lying, trust us guy, we know the right story. The problem is the US isn't buying it, and that is why we, as South Africa, find ourselves in the situation that we're in. For those of you who would have saw, Ronaldo Gous, for example, did a video today around Nassim Pilson, the EFF Minister of Parliament, who sat there basically chanting death to America, death to Israel. I mean, come on, dude, is that right-wing conspiracy theorist, or is that guy literally standing there? I think it looks to me like he's in a mosque, but he's a member of Parliament. He's literally a member of Parliament, sitting there saying things that, to be honest, is not acceptable in a lot of Western countries. You might get away with this in Iraq. This is in Iraq. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. But in any case, what we do know is with the current tariffs being levied by Donald Trump against South Africa, the AGOA is effectively dead because AGOA was free trade and there is no free trade now. There is a minimum tariff being imposed on all goods from South Africa to the US now. And Parks himself, the Minister of Trade, even he says, there is no AGOA now. AGOA is finished. And we now just have to negotiate a new deal, which will no doubt have to be something like the reciprocal tariff deals that Trump's doing elsewhere. In other words, we drop our tariffs, they drop theirs. And I guess what's the actual likelihood of this? Well, the likelihood at the moment is it may wreak havoc on our supply chain, specifically in relation to the automotive and agricultural industries, because we do a lot of exchange and buying of goods and selling of goods with the US. In fact, the US is our third largest partner when it comes through to exchanging these type of goods, whether we buy from them or they buy from us. This is actually worth 35 billion a year to South Africa. It accounts for 6.5% of export. Like, that's a serious amount of business. So no matter what happens, South Africa is going to have to move very quickly in order to make sure that the industry is safeguarded. And South Africa moving quickly are words that usually don't ever get said. So I don't hold my breath. And with that being said, I have heard it now being alleged that BMW may be one of the first makers suggesting it may leave the country. This is unconfirmed, and it's all just, well, speculation. But what's not speculation is basically Helen Zillie's response to Fikile Mbalula's press conference yesterday. She says, I don't know why you find it, Fikile, so surprising that we rocked up for work after we voted down the budget to do the job that we said we would do. Because we're principled, and that's what we're going to do. And she says that, look, if the president looks to redo cabinet positions, in other words, he looks to do a cabinet reshuffle without the DA's approval and the other GNU party's approval, that would effectively be the end of the GNU. If the ANC attempts to take 2 ministries off the DA, which some high-level ANC individuals are suggesting that they should, in retaliation for the DA voting down the budget, well, she says that will be the end of the GNU. So she says the ball's firmly in your court, and she agrees that it is firmly in the court of the president to appoint and fire and hire individuals as he sees fit. But in the instance of the DA members, should he do that, according to her, the end of the GNU. So we all wait to see what Cyril and the ANC do. And if you watched my video from yesterday, remember they've got 7 days to sit there and basically deliberate and have nice feelings about this. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and to be frank, none of my sources do either. Which tells me that even the president doesn't know what he's going to do at this point in time. In any case, these are all just my views. You do let me know what you think in the comment section below. Quite a lot going on today, and you can let me know your thoughts. Until tomorrow, bye.